It was one of those nights when the silence felt heavier than any noise, when the city outside seemed to breathe in long, quiet sighs. My apartment was washed in the dim amber light of the street lamp across the road, shadows shifting faintly against the walls. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind stuck in an endless loop of replaying the day and counting regrets. Sleep wasn't coming. I don't know if it was because I was restless or because somewhere deep down I was waiting for something. Then my phone buzzed once, the faint vibration startling me in the stillness. I turned my head toward it, and the red digits of the clock on my nightstand read 1:03 a.m. My pulse spiked. Messages at this hour are never neutral. They're either emergencies or they're from people you shouldn't hear from again. I reached for the phone and felt my breath catch when the name lit up the screen. Elias. For a second, I just stared at it, almost expecting the letters to rearrange into someone else's name, because seeing it felt like spotting a ghost in my living room. My thumb hovered over the screen, not touching it. His name alone was enough to crack open 1,000 memories I'd worked hard to seal away. The sound of his voice in the dark, the way his fingertips used to trail over the back of my neck before pulling me close, the scent of his hoodie when I wore for days after he'd gone. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since the night he told me, "I can't love you the way you want me to, but I'll always want you," before walking out of my apartment and out of my life. That line had replayed in my head more times than I could count, sometimes bitterly, sometimes with an ache I couldn't explain. Now here he was, after midnight, prying open a door I'd nailed shut. I unlocked the screen, and the message was as simple as it was devastating. "Are you awake?" The 3 words hit me harder than I'd like to admit. I typed yeah and deleted it. Then what's going on? Deleted that too. Finally, I sent "why now?" His reply came instantly, as if he'd been sitting there, staring at our empty chat thread, waiting for my bubble to appear. "Because I miss you." I sat up in bed, swinging my legs over the side, heart thudding in my chest. This wasn't a conversation I could have lying down. My fingers moved before I thought them through. I didn't tell him to come over. I didn't tell him not to, either. 10 minutes later, he asked if he could see me. 10 minutes after that, I heard the knock at my door. When I opened it, he stood there looking almost exactly as I remembered, black hair falling messily over his forehead, those deep brown eyes that always seemed to look straight through me. But there was something different, too. He carried a heaviness now, like the air around him had been weighed down by storms he hadn't escaped. He didn't speak right away. Neither did I. He stepped in, and I stepped back, like we were moving through a dance we hadn't rehearsed in years but still remembered perfectly. The familiar scent of rain and cigarettes followed him, pulling at something deep in me I didn't want to acknowledge. We ended up in the kitchen, leaning on opposite counters, the hum of the fridge filling the spaces where our words couldn't. I finally asked, "Why are you here, Elias?" My voice was quieter than I intended. He glanced down at his hands, fingers tracing invisible patterns on the counter. "I told you," he said softly. "I miss you." My chest tightened. "That's not enough. Not after everything." His eyes lifted to meet mine, and for a moment I hated how quickly I felt the ground shift beneath me. "I know," he said, "but I can't stop thinking about you. I tried. God, I tried." I wanted to remind him the nights I cried myself to sleep after he left, the way I'd flinch at certain songs because they were ours, the months it took to stop reaching for my phone when something reminded me of him. But standing there, I just ached. We talked for a while, though not about the obvious things at first. He told me about the city he'd been living in, the work he'd been doing. I told him little bits about my life, carefully avoiding the parts where I'd been broken. Eventually, the conversation circled closer to the truth. He admitted he'd been with someone else. I'd already known from mutual friends. What I didn't know was that it had ended badly, so badly that he looked smaller telling me about it. "He wasn't you," he said quietly, and it felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. The space between us grew smaller, without either of us moving deliberately. His fingers brushed mine on the counter, a light touch that felt heavier than it should have. I didn't pull away. He stepped closer, hesitating for just a second before his hands settled over mine. It was like my body had been waiting for this contact since the day he left. I could feel his breath when he finally leaned in, The first kiss was not cautious. It was raw, desperate, like both of us were trying to make up for every moment we'd been apart. My hands went to his hair automatically, his grip tightening on me as though letting go might make me vanish. We stumbled toward the couch, lips never parting for long, the glow from the street lamp slicing across the room in sharp lines. His mouth traced the side of my neck in that slow, deliberate way he knew unraveled me. But there was more than lust in it. There was a tremor in him, like he was afraid I might still push him away. I whispered against his lips, "Stay this time," though I didn't know if I meant tonight or forever. He pressed his forehead to mine. "If I stay," he murmured, "I can't promise I won't ruin you again." The truth was, I didn't care. The thought of him leaving scared me more than the possibility of him breaking me again. We didn't sleep. The rain started tapping against the windows while we lay tangled on the couch, his hand resting on my chest like he needed to feel my heartbeat. In the quiet, I studied his face in the thin light, wondering if he was here because he truly wanted me or because he needed someone to remind him of who he used to be. Loving him had always been like standing too close to the edge of a cliff, exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. But dark love is like that. It carves deep enough to leave scars, and maybe, for people like us, the scars part of the point. Around 4 a.m., he drifted off for a little while, his head on my shoulder. I didn't move. I was afraid that if I did, the spell would break, and I'd wake up to find the space beside me empty again. When he stirred, he whispered my name like it was something fragile. I kissed his hair and held him tighter. The world outside could have been ending, and I don't think either of us would have noticed. It was a kind of night that felt suspended in time, where every heartbeat was a decision and every breath felt borrowed. I knew when the sun came up, we'd have a talk about what this meant, about whether this was a beginning or a relapse. But in that moment, under the soft rhythm of rain, I didn't want answers. I only wanted him there, real and warm and alive in my arms, because for all the hurt, for all the history, Elias was still the only person who could make 1 a.m. feel like the middle of forever.